I'll never forget the scream. It wasn't the kind of cry you could ignore. It was raw, filled with pain so deep it silenced the entire gathering. Nneka stood there, frozen, her hand pressed to her chest like she was trying to hold her heart together. But it was too late. Her heart had already been shattered. That was the moment the Igwe announced that Prince Emeka would marry Nkem, the daughter of Chief Okonkwo. Everyone knew Emeka loved Nneka, but in that instant, tradition wiped away every promise, every secret meeting by the river. It was over. Nneka didn't wait to hear the rest. She turned and ran, her feet barely touching the ground as she disappeared into the night. I ran after her, but I wasn't fast enough. I need you to understand something. Emeka and Nneka didn't just fall in love overnight. They grew up together, playing in the village square as children, stealing glances during festivals and sharing stories late into the night when no one was watching. But they were from different worlds. Nneka was just a commoner, the daughter of a palm wine tapper, while Emeka was royalty, destined to marry someone from a family with wealth and power. Still, their love blossomed in the shadows, away from prying eyes. They met by the river, their love secret but fierce. It was as if the gods themselves brought them together. But the gods are cruel and tradition is unforgiving. "I love you," Emeka had told her one night, his hands cupping her face. "No one can change that, not even my father." Nneka believed him. She believed him with all her heart. The village square was buzzing with excitement that night. The Igwe had summoned everyone for an important announcement. The royal drums echoed through the air, signaling that something big was about to happen. But no one knew just how devastating it would be. Nneka stood at the edge of the crowd, her eyes searching for Emeka. She thought maybe, just maybe, he would make their love public. Maybe he had found a way to convince his father to let him marry her, despite tradition. She was hopeful until the Igwe's voice boomed through the square. "We have chosen a bride for Prince Emeka," the Igwe said, his voice carrying the weight of finality. "Nkem, daughter of Chief Okonkwo." Nneka's breath caught in her throat. Nkem. Everyone knew she was ambitious, cold, and hungry for power, but her family was wealthy, and wealth was what mattered. Tradition had spoken, and Emeka's love for Nneka was as good as dead. The look on Nneka's face as she fled the square is something I'll never forget. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was betrayal. I found Nneka by the river the next day. She sat on the banks, staring at the water as if it held the answers to the pain she was feeling. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. "He promised me Chinelo," she said, barely louder than a whisper. "He said we would be together, no matter what." I didn't know what to say. What could I say? Emeka had made promises, but the pull of tradition had crushed them. Still, I told her what I knew. "He didn't choose this, Nneka. His father did. He had no choice." "There's always a choice," she said, her voice bitter. "But he chose her." Emeka tried to reach her. He sent messages through me, each one more desperate than the last. He begged her to forgive him and to understand. He said he was trapped by duty, by the expectations of his family. But love isn't about duty, and Nneka wasn't about to be anyone's second choice. "He says he loves you," I told her one evening, handing her another letter. She didn't even open it. She looked at me with empty eyes and said, "Love isn't enough when you're too weak to fight for it." While Nneka's heart was breaking, Nkem was busy preparing for her new life as a queen. She had always wanted power, and marrying Emeka would give her exactly that. She didn't care that his heart belonged to someone else. As long as she sat beside him on the throne, nothing else mattered. But Nkem wasn't stupid. She knew about Emeka's love for Nneka, and she knew that love was a threat. I once overheard her speaking to one of her maids. "Nneka may have his heart," she said, "but I'll have his crown. Let's see which one keeps him warm at night." It sent chills down my spine. Nkem wasn't just marrying Emeka for love, she was marrying him for control, and Nneka was standing in her way. The day of the wedding approached, and the village was alive with preparations. But Nneka was a shadow of herself. She wandered through the village like a ghost, her eyes distant, her once vibrant spirit crushed. Emeka's betrayal had left her empty, but beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. "If I can't have him," she told me one night, her voice cold and steady, "then neither will she." I was scared. Nneka wasn't the same. The pain of betrayal had twisted her, turning her love into something dangerous. I didn't know what she was planning, but I knew it wasn't good. The night before the wedding, I found Nneka at the foot of the old Iroko tree. She stood there, staring up at its ancient branches, her face unreadable. "Are you going to the wedding tomorrow?" I asked, my voice trembling. I didn't know how to help her. I didn't know how to stop whatever she was planning. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she traced a line in the dirt with her foot, her eyes still on the tree. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but filled with resolve. "I have something to give Emeka. He won't forget me, not ever." The wedding day arrived, and the entire village gathered at the palace. The drums were loud, the dancers vibrant, but the joy in the air was hollow. Something was off, and everyone felt it. As the ceremony began, Nneka appeared at the palace gates. She was dressed in white, her hair wild and loose, and her eyes filled with something fierce and unsettling. She walked straight to the entrance, ignoring the whispers and stares. The guards tried to stop her, but she was relentless. "I need to see him," she said, her voice steady. "I won't leave until I do." Inside the grand hall, the air was thick with tension. Emeka stood next to Nkem, his face blank, his heart clearly not in the celebration. The Igwe sat proudly on his throne, unaware of the storm brewing just outside. Then Nneka appeared. The crowd parted as she walked straight up to Emeka, her eyes locked on his. There was no fear, no hesitation, only anger, betrayal, and something else, something darker. "You promised me," she whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You said we would be together." Emeka opened his mouth to speak, but the words never came. Nneka pulled out a small knife, and before anyone could stop her, she slashed her palm, letting the blood drip onto the palace floor. "I curse you," she said, her voice cold and steady. "You will never know peace, not with her, not with anyone." The room went silent. The drums stopped. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath as Nneka turned and walked away, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The wedding went on, but it was clear to everyone that something had shifted. Emeka was no longer the man he once was. He moved through the motions, but his heart wasn't in it. Nkem, now his wife, realized quickly that she had won the title of queen, but not his love. Emeka barely spoke to her. He barely looked at her. His heart was lost to Nneka, even though she was gone. Nkem grew bitter, her jealousy consuming her. She had the crown, but what good was it without love? She blamed Nneka, but deep down she knew it wasn't Nneka's fault. It was Emeka's. He had betrayed them both. In the end, no one won. Emeka, bound by tradition, lost the woman he truly loved. Nkem, who thought she could win Emeka's heart through power, found herself alone in a loveless marriage. And Nneka, she vanished, leaving only whispers of her curse behind. The lesson in this story is simple. Love and tradition don't always walk the same path. When you betray love for duty, for power, or for fear, you risk losing everything. Emeka could have fought for Nneka, but he didn't. And in the end, he lost both the woman he loved and the peace of mind he once had. Nneka's curse wasn't just a mystical threat, it was the weight of guilt, regret, and a broken promise that would haunt him forever. Nkem, despite her ambition and wealth, discovered that a crown without love is a heavy burden to bear. Nneka was the only one who truly followed her heart, though it led her down a dark and destructive path. Her curse wasn't just on Emeka and Nkem, it was on herself too. By letting her heartbreak turn into vengeance, she became lost, consumed by the very pain she had tried to escape. The village would never forget the story of Nneka, Emeka, and Nkem. Parents would tell their children about the dangers of letting tradition destroy love, about the consequences of betrayal, and about the price of vengeance. But in the end, the moral was clear. When love is torn apart by greed, fear, or tradition, everyone loses. True strength comes from standing by your heart, even when it is hardest. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to Enthrall Tales, and share it with your friends. What would you have done if you were Nneka, Emeka, or Nkem? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk about it.